morning.
Good morning.
All right, you're awake already.
Just didn't want to say it
I
more.
like to see that. Well, back in 2003, just a few years ago, Jim Hager of Oakland, California, earned a place in the Guinness Book of World Records. His accomplishment was eating 115 M&Ms in 3 minutes using a pair of chopsticks. Try that sometime. Just trying to eat with chopsticks with rice is something else, let alone M&Ms. I have no idea how long it took him to perfect this skill of eating M&Ms with chopsticks, and I certainly have no idea why he even undertook such a task. But we all have our dreams. Dwight David Eisenhower, 34th President of the United States, says that when he was a small boy in Kansas, he went fishing with one of his best friends, and young Eisenhower confided in him that his dream was to one day be a Major League Baseball player. And his friend, interesting enough, said his dream was to become President of the United States. Eisenhower said wistfully, neither of us got our wish. In 1976, motivational speaker Steve Chandler interviewed an aspiring young actor named Arnold Schwarzenegger. Schwarzenegger was promoting his first film. Now that you've retired from bodybuilding, Chandler asked him, "What are you going to do next?" And with a calm voice, Arnold Schwarzenegger said, "I'm going to be the #1 box office star in all of Hollywood." Chandler, trying to not show his amusement, because Schwarzenegger's first attempt hadn't shown much promise, his Australian accent and his monstrous build didn't actually suggest any acceptance by Hollywood very quickly, said, "How are you going to do this?" And he says, "It's the same process he used in bodybuilding." He says, "What you do is create a vision of what you want to be and then live into that picture as if it were already true." Now, it sounded ridiculously simple to Chandler. He says, too simple to even mean anything. But I wrote it down and never forget it. I wonder what Chandler would have thought if Arnold had said that his dream was to become president or to become governor of California. It would have changed things. One of my dreams when I was younger was to attend West Point. I saw the movie The Long Gray Line, and that became one of my dreams to become a West Point cadet. I went so far in my junior high school to take a civil service exam. It's an 8-hour exam. It'll bear the teeth right off of you. I was taking that exam against guys with 3 years of college, with all kinds of calculus and everything else that I hadn't even had yet. So my chances were about as good as a cow jumping over the moon. But I did receive a letter back from Civil Service Board explaining I'd been in the upper 37% of those testing, and they were sorry we had to be in the upper 30% to continue competing. So my second shot was after I entered the armed forces in the Army as an enlisted man. I was finishing up my AIT, which is Advanced Infantry or Advanced Individual Training, both in Army, to enter West Point Prep, which is a 2-year prep school to enter actual academy. And I was doing really good. In fact, my battalion commander put me in for it. So we were going along real great, passing everything else. And I thought, well, even if I don't make it through West Point Prep, I come out as a sergeant, which I did make before I left the military, but would have been a little quicker. And then it was 2 weeks from my oral review board, I got called down telling me I had to take a blindness test, color blindness test. Well, folks, I missed 8 out of 13. Had to have 7 out of 13 to pass. So I didn't make it. So needless to say, my dream of going to West Point was just that, a dream. How many of you ever had a dream in your life that you wanted to see completed? How many of those dreams never came true? Most of us, at one time or other in our life, have had a dream. Some of those dreams were childish, many were unrealistic, and some just beyond our grasp no matter what we try to do. Well, you heard earlier, James and John, the sons of Zebedee, had dreams, ambitions. They, along with Simon Peter, were Jesus' closest disciples. They were with Jesus for all of the significant events in Jesus' ministry. For example, when Jesus went to the Mount of Transfiguration, certainly one of the most dramatic moments in his ministry, he chose the three of them to go with him. Jesus nicknamed James and John the sons of thunder. That's quite descriptive when you think about it. My guess is that they were quite dynamic individuals. They had been fishermen when Jesus called them. So you can imagine, they were kind of crusty probably. Undoubtedly, they were quite successful in their fishing adventure and their enterprise. Sons of thunder. Sounds like a pair of leaders, entrepreneurs, movers and shakers. It's only natural that they would move into a leadership role among the disciples. So it should be no surprise to us that one day these sons of thunder come to Jesus with a request. They want to negotiate a better position in the company, so to speak. Teacher, they said, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. You know, that's what happens with us parents and grandparents. Daddy, Papa, the child will say, I need you to do me a favor. But they don't tell you up front what that favor is. They say, we do a favor. They expect because your mom or dad, Papa or Grandma, that you're going to do automatically what they request. How many of you ever had that happen to you? Faith does that to us all the time. You know? So James and John feel that they had that kind of relationship with Jesus. At least they feel that they're somehow earned special consideration within his group. You know, sometimes you and I go to God with that same kind of attitude, don't we? We feel we get certain special recognition because maybe we're Christians. We're Sunday school teachers. We give generously to the church work. We deserve for God to listen to our request and to grant us whatever we want, even though God may have a different plan altogether for us. And so you have James and John saying, Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. Christ said, what does he want me to do for you? That's when he replied, let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory. Well, here Mark's records records that James and John went to Jesus with a request, but in Matthew, if you look back, their mother also went with these two and made this request. And there's no contradiction in the two accounts. Mother and sons were in agreement in their requesting honored places in Christ's kingdom. This request seems to hit a sensitive nerve with Christ. He says, you don't know what you're asking. Jesus says, can you drink the cup I drink, or be baptized with baptism that I'm baptized with? Disciples, like most Jews of that time, had the wrong idea of the Messiah's kingdom as predicted in the Old Testament prophets. They thought Jesus would establish an earthly kingdom that would free Israel from Rome's oppression. And James and John were honored, or wanted to be honored, in a specific place in his kingdom. But Jesus' kingdom is not that kind of a world. It's not a place of palaces and thrones, but in the hearts of lives and the way we live it as followers. Disciples didn't understand this until after Christ's resurrection. So here's where we see a real disconnect between the disciples' expectations of why Christ had come into the world and Christ's own plan. Can you drink the cup that I drink? Were you baptized with the baptism I'm baptized with? And their answer, we can. Sons of thunder, believing they can do anything. And that's James and John were still very young at that time, kind of inexperienced. They still believed they were invincible. Jesus asked them, can you drink the cup I drink, or baptized with the baptism I'm baptized with? He said, we can. And Jesus said to them, you will drink the cup I drink, and be baptized with the baptism I'm baptized with. But to sit at the right or the left is not mine to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared. Like most of Jesus' answers, one is not easily deciphered. Jesus seems to be telling them that they'll be experiencing what he experiences, but it might not be what they expect. James and John said they're willing to face any trial with Christ. He will suffer, they will suffer. He'll be betrayed, they'll be betrayed. He'll give his life in service to the Father, they will give up their life in service to the Father. You will drink the cup I drink, be baptized with the baptism I'm baptized with. Now they, of course, have no idea what this means until much later in their lives. In fact, James was the very first apostle to die. It was recorded in the 12th chapter of Acts, verse 2. He was taken with a sword, murdered, and beheaded by Herod. He was the first apostle to be martyred. And John lived a much longer life, but much of it was lived out in exile. It's recorded in Revelations, chapter 1, verse 9. They would drink Christ's cup. They will not get what they're asking for here. It's easy to say that we'll endure anything for Christ. And yet most of us complain about the most minor problems. If we say we're willing to suffer on a large scale for Christ, we must also be willing to suffer the irritations that come with serving others. Jesus said, to sit at the right hand or the left hand is not for me to grant. Sorry guys, it isn't going to happen. And when the other 10 disciples heard about James and John's request, as you heard from the scripture this morning, they were arrogant. They were indignant, as we might expect. Jesus calls them together and turns this into a teaching moment for all of them. You know, there are those that regard as rulers the Gentiles, lord it over them, said Jesus. And their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. This is a powerful story for us. James and John were ambitious. They wanted to be the stars in Jesus' enterprise. They wanted to have greatness. And that's exactly what they got. It just didn't happen the way they expected it to. After all, here we are, talking about the two of them, 2,000 plus years later. Think about that. Do you think anybody's going to be talking about you 2,000 years from now? Robert, who? Never heard of it. But they could be. They could be. If we too were willing to drink the same cup and be baptized with the same baptism as Christ. But it's not an invitation to live on easy street either. So what are the lessons that we can derive from the question James and John have asked Jesus about sitting at the right and the left in glory? The first lesson that we learned is that Jesus did not condemn James and John for their ambition. Jesus wants his followers to seek after greatness. Why would we ever think that Jesus wants his people to live mediocre lives? He wants us to be great. Set your course over what it might be on achieving ambition. You know, I hope every one of the young people have heard a story about Booker T. Washington. How many of you remember Booker T. Washington? Ever heard a story about Booker T. Washington? Washington was only born in 1856 on a Burroughs tobacco farm in southern Virginia. His mother was a cook, and his father was a white man from a nearby farm. He went to school not as a student, but as a slave. Each day he carried the books for one of the Burroughs' daughters, because it was illegal to educate a slave back then. In fact, he said, I had the feeling that to get into the schoolhouse and study would be about the same as getting into paradise. The Civil War brought to an end slavery, while Washington was still a young boy, and so fortunately he earned a high school education. Still, there was no higher education at that time for African Americans. And then just about the right time a university opened that was devoted to the education of descendants of slaves. It meant a walk of 500 miles. But Booker T. Washington got to that school. Can you imagine walking 500 miles? Some of us won't go that far if the air conditioner or heater aren't working in our car, right? Let alone walk it on foot. That's that's what Booker T. Washington did. He walked all the way. But when he got there, he discovered that the last place in that school had been filled. So all they could offer him was a job as a servant, sweeping the bedrooms and making the beds. So he took that menial job, and in due time he was allowed in as a student. And from the humble start, he became a principal and guiding force behind Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, which was founded in 1881, devoted to industrial and moral education and to the training of public school teachers. Soon he got recognized as the nation's foremost African-American educator. In our passage, we see that Jesus didn't ridicule James and John for asking, but he denied their request. We can feel free to ask God for anything we want, but our request may be denied, and we have to accept that. God wants to give us what is best for us, not merely what we want. And sometimes that's very hard for us to understand. We want this, and God says, not right now, I've got this for you. Well, I don't want that, I want this. But he's telling us he's denying it for our own good. There's nothing wrong with aspiring to be the best that we can be at the things we do, as long as these are honorable things. Indeed, this is why God gave us good minds and healthy bodies. Jesus did not condemn James and John for ambition. People who achieve great things in this world by definition, are ambitious people. But it's important to note, however, that ambition can be misguided. There's a fine line between ambition and ruthlessness. Ambition or greed. Our economy has been crippled, and many people have lost their entire life savings over the past few years because some people chose dishonest means to satisfy their ambitions. As an example, it was a school created to offer courses in real estate, asset management, entrepreneurship, wealth creation. The school offered no college credit, no degrees, no grades to students, wasn't even accredited. The school was a for-profit school and existed from 2005 to 2010 and involved about 7,611 students. If you break it down, there were 6,000 that paid $1,500 for a 3-day course. 1,000 were paying anywhere from what I call silver, gold, or elite status, ranging from $10,000 to $35,000 for personally mentored classes. The school was shut down in 2010 for misleading marketing practices and aggressive sales tactics. It required the students to provide positive evaluations if they wanted to get a graduation certificate. And the promises the school made for those students never panned out. Someone lost a lot of money. Someone made a lot of money, but it wasn't the students. In fact, lawsuits were filed and finally settled 6 years after the school was shut down. So it leaves you no doubt as to who got rich and who got taken as proverbial cleaners. It's an old story. Some people will do anything, even to the point of destroying others, to achieve their goals. Some of you will remember an award-winning film back in the 1970s titled Network. Anybody ever see that movie? It was a strange movie back then. It's a satire about a ruthless group of executives who transforms a major U.S. television network into a thoroughly evil entity. The UBS network will do just about anything to boost audience ratings and generate advertising revenue. For example, there's a program about terrorists, starring terrorists themselves. There's a talk show host who was psychotic and deranged doing their own show. The schedule is filled with dramas featuring explicit sex and gratuitous violence. And the central and most famous event in this network movie occurs when a veteran news anchor, Howard Beale, played by Peter Fitch, goes insane on the air. Beale show suffers from low ratings. So when the entertainment division of that network takes over the show and fires him, he comes on that evening, announces that his life's been ruined because of being fired, and he's going to commit suicide on the air within a week. And his ratings shoot to the top. And Beale becomes a superstar, thus quenching his willingness to take his own life. He still acts deranged, though. And his rage attracts an enormous following. By the end of the movie, though, he changes his message, and the ratings decline. And he's murdered on air by the urban terrorist by order of the network executives. The film's over the top, way over the top. That's why it's a satire. However, it's scary how prophetic the movie is in some ways today. Because we can see our own entertainment media drifting in network's direction with each new broadcast season, if you think about it. Jesus didn't condemn James and John for their ambition. However, it is important to acknowledge that misguided ambition is at the heart of many of the world's great tragedies today. The primary lesson Jesus is teaching is that the path to true greatness is service. If your ambition is life, is to truly be one of the greatest people who ever lived, you need to learn to serve others and to serve God. That's what it boils down to. James and John wanted the highest position in Jesus' kingdom. But Jesus told them that the true greatness comes in serving others. Peter, one of the disciples who heard the measure, expands the thought in 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 1 through 4, when he says, "To the elders among you, I appeal as a fellow elder, a witness of Christ's sufferings, and one who also will share in the glory to be revealed. Be shepherds of God's flock that's under your care, serving as overseers, not because you must, but because you are willing, as God wants you to be, not greedy for money, but eager to serve, not lording over those entrusted to you, but being examples to the flock. When a chief shepherd appears, you will receive the crown of glory that will never fade away." There's another movie that came out in 2009 that makes that point interesting. The movie's called The Soloist. You may have seen that one. It's a powerful movie that's going to, you think about it, brings you thoughts about people of homelessness. The movie stars Robert Downey Jr. and Jamie Foxx. It's a true story based on the real-life experience of a Los Angeles Times journalist, Steve Lopez, is played by Downey. As the movie opens, Lopez's life has been wrecked. He drinks too much, his marriage is on the rocks, and his estranged son doesn't talk with him. Then he stumbles across this homeless man named Nathaniel Ayers, played by Jamie Foxx. Ayers is on the street playing beautiful music on a violin with only 2 strings. Lopez discovers that Nathaniel is a gifted man. In fact, he had been a cello student at New York's Juilliard School. But his studies were cut short by a battle with schizophrenia. And Lopez gets Ayers settled in the Lamp community. It's a homeless shelter in L.A. on Skid Row. It is a difficult transition for Ayers to leave the streets because of the extent of his psychological problems, and it's painfully obvious as you watch the movie. Now, first, Lopez sees Ayers only as material for his column in the New York Times. However, as he moves into this homeless man's world and begins to befriend him, they develop a relationship that transcends that of journalist and subject. What is most interesting is that change that takes place in Lopez's life as he tries to relate to Nathaniel. He starts getting his own life together. He begins to understand the importance of relationship and of commitment to others. See, Lopez is learning. Nathaniel Ayers discovers the truth of Jesus' words. Whoever wants to become great must first be a servant. In the last verse of our text for today, verse 45, reveals not only the motive for Jesus' ministry, it's also the basis for his salvation. A ransom was a price to release a slave. Jesus paid a ransom for us because we could not pay it ourselves. His death released all of us from our slavery to sin. His death released all of us. His disciples, James and John, thought of Jesus' life and power would save them from Rome. Jesus says death would save them from sin, an even greater slavery than Rome's. The story of James and John says to us that it's all right to be ambitious, though misused ambition can be a dangerous thing. It also challenges us to seek after greatness, because the world simply cannot understand. It's a greatness exemplified by our Master, who laid down his life for all humanity. But if we want to be great, you need to learn to be a servant. Which kind of leads me to a plug in your bulletin. You see the list of offices still open for this year in serving the church. But they've all been filled. I challenge somebody to help serve this coming year.